in Colorado. Hi, it's 1 o'clock, and I'm going to give you guys a few minutes to get in. And as you can see, it's Sheila from Celtic Tarot. It's 1 o'clock in Central Zone and noon in the Mountain Time. And we were just gossiping, as we do. And I don't see it. I mean, the people are in there, they're just not talking yet.
We were, not necessarily gossiping. We were just talking about family stuff.
Right, family things, being a mom.
Yeah, being a mom and all that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. Give everybody a minute or two to walk in.
Juno's here. Hi, Juno. And we get a few more coming in.
Here we go. I just got the notification, so.
Okay. So, I'm gonna turn my sound thing off because people keep thinking I have someone doing Bewitched in my office, and that's really not true. That's my notifications. The nose twitch is my notifications. So, everybody all ready for You Thought It Might Never Come, day 7 of 9 candles. Doesn't sound like much when you start out on it, but then you get in there and you're kind of going, well.
Right. It goes fast. Well, isn't tonight or tomorrow night the full moon?
Tomorrow night's full moon.
Tomorrow night.
And it's really letting go energetically with how things are squared against it. It's in Taurus, and it's sort of you can feel it this week. It's already changing. I mean, the energy around all sorts of things are changing, other than for.
It has. I don't feel so heavy and so, like. It was really impactful to me, and functioning was really difficult. I watched it even with my daughter. I mean, the more it went on, the less she was able to she had to literally make herself do something.
Mm-hmm.
And that was, and it was happening with me too. Just I had to make myself do something. It was pretty. Usually I'm very high functioning. I'll do anything, just go, take a cat nap here, get up, go again.
Mm-hmm.
But it took a little toll on me this time.
It's been a pull, but I think this is where, if you've seen the big wave coming in and say, when the hell's it going to get here? It's going to crash on the shore.
Moon is in Aries.
Moon is in Aries, but it will be in Taurus for the full moon.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying.
Yeah. They move. That's why people say, oh, how important is the time of your birth? For your ascendant, it moves a minute. It moves a degree each minute. So it makes a lot of difference. And then for the moon moves pretty quickly. And so where the moon would be on your chart. But after that, you can sort of say noon on a day, and most of the planets will be kind of where they would be.
I have a really nice app on my phone where it is.
Man, they're piling in.
Yeah, Moon X.
Yes.
Is the app that I have that keeps me on track. Not that I'm always right, because as anybody knows me, yesterday I made a huge mistake. I kept on calling General Powell Colonel Powell, and after it was all done and over with, they're like, his name is General Powell, and I'm like, oh, Sheila, how can you get those things wrong? But it happens.
People don't understand when we're in a reading state, we're in an altered state. Or I can say maybe I'm in an altered state when I'm doing everything else, and I'm in the real state when I'm doing readings. But you are in a different mental plane, and that's why I keep telling people, don't tell me, oh, you remember what you said 3 months ago, because this is how I know where the moon is. I know I'm going to have to take it off to show you, but I carry it around on my wrist.
Oh, I want one of those.
It's a Versa 3. It's a Versa 3. And that's one that tracks my my heart and my oxygen sats too, which I have to do because I'm old. Well, when mine go, they go too. That's the other problem.
Well, there's also something else too, that when you're in the realm of spirit, and you're giving readings, a lot of times I tell the people that I do personal readings with, I say, It says, I promise you I won't remember our reading with you because this information is only for you. It's not for me to retain. So like 2 months later, don't you remember that? I'm like, no, because that information was for you directly from spirit to you. Those were your messages, your things. I was just a conduit. And so I always remind them, if you are going to give me an update, you have to give me a little backstory as to what I said because I won't
Right.
remember.
Yeah, I went through that yesterday. I read for a musician that's part of the symphony here, and she's 65. She just turned 65, but she's got another 5-year contract because she's really, really good. And we were talking about her options once she gets past that. And she said, remember 2 years ago? And I looked at her and said, oh, yeah, I remember. You don't remember. So I'm safe.
Yep.
Oh, okay. If Annette, you can find there are astrologers called, I think they're called rectification astrologers, and what they can do is they can take your birth date, and then when you can tell them important things that happened in your life, they can figure out really, really closely to where your birth time would have been. And the woman who trained me, Helen Blue, she did a lot of that. That's one thing she was known for. So it's called a rectification astrologer. And, or just talk to other astrologers. They know more about what they do than I know about what they do. I always tell people I know just enough to be dangerous when it comes to astrology.
Right. Well, thanks to Nancy. She has hooked me up with a great astrologer. Her name is Dorothy Morgan.
Mm-hmm.
She has a website. What is her website?
NH Astrologer.
And is it Nancy?
H is in New Hampshire. It's New Hampshire. That's where she lives.
There we go. New Hampshire Astrologer.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Right.
And she's going to go ahead and take care of my questions that I have with my natal chart. So that was awesome. So I have it. It's tomorrow.
Yeah, I want to hear what she says.
Tomorrow at 9 o'clock. Well, I don't mind. I can send you the Zoom link. You can listen in.
Okay. Yeah, I may do that. Okay.
All right. I'll ask her and see if she'd like to do that. So. But anyway, so I'm going to get all of my answers, my questions.
She's got a whole lot of air and a whole lot of fire and not a lot in between.
No.
Yeah, Sheila said, could you look at my chart? I looked at her chart and I said, there's this nice lady in New Hampshire named Dorothy. You really need to talk to her.
She goes, Sheila, I'm going to take you over here.
Well, thank you, Sharon, for being here and being our little controller of all things wonderful. So we're going to start the ceremony and get a little bit serious here, and then we're going to kind of chit chat today because today's kind of a chit chatty sort of day. You know that the quote that fired up my drive to do the 9 candles came from someone who did a whole essay on this is the fastest October in our lives. And it really seems that since August 8th, 8/8 Lionsgate, a lot of energy was building up and we could feel it all around us and it started pushing in on people. And when I was talking to clients, they were telling me that they were feeling it like pressing in all around them. Well, that doesn't amaze me because I kind of live in a bubble and things come at me from all directions. But apparently this is sort of a new phenomena. So they're kind of like, instead of having a nice little straight line that this happens and this happens and this happens, they were getting... And so I decided maybe we do 9 candles to give us a place to come that can become a safe haven for each of us. So we're going to light the candles and we're at day 7. Sheila's an old hand at this. She's been doing this forever. Okay, there's day 1. Day 2. And this lazy Susan thing really works because that's day 3. Because you don't have to put your hand over the candles and they get hot, guys. Day 4. Day 5. Day 6. Day 7. And 7 is the number for analysis, being analytical. It's also spirit number in all faiths. Sevens, spiritual things come greatly in sevens. But as we light these candles to connect our spirit and energy with the positive changes that we're going into moving forward, by combining our energies, thoughts, and prayers, we will build a haven of safety for us to find peace within our hearts and have the energy to flow into the universe. Each of us has our own energetic rainbows, which we will now mingle all of our colors together to create peace across time. And that's a peacock stone in the middle, in case you're new here. And that's a form of pyrite that has other minerals infused in it naturally. And that covers all the chakras. So this is up and down your body, to the root, to the roof, the whole thing. So now, Sheila had a great idea. She has something she's run across that she wants to talk about. It's called the Four Agreements, and it's kind of a way that we can take the elevated energy we're creating by lighting the candles and joining with each other now and move forward. So I'm going to let her talk about it. Four Agreements.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Right before I come on here with Nancy, I was out in my garden. And when I'm gardening or doing mowing or whatever it is, I always go into a meditative state. I'm aware of what I am doing, but I really talk to spirit a lot when I'm doing my chores. It keeps me connected. And I remember back in the day, I think it was maybe 10 years ago, I came across these wonderful CD that I used to travel a lot, still do. And I'd get in my vehicle and I would just put in a CD and just go. And one of my favorite ones is called The Four Agreements that I came across. It's by Miguel Ruiz. And I think that Nancy is going to put the website up that you can definitely go and check this out. And the Four Agreements has a lot to do with raising your vibration. A lot of people are like, how do we raise our vibration? I had it again in another one of my videos. Please talk about how we raise our vibrations. And this is really keeping yourself at a very, very stable vibrating spot so that you don't have to tank as much as we used to back in the day. So the Four Agreements, and I'm going to read each four of them, and then I'm going to give a little bit of information about them. The first one is be impeccable with your word. The second one is don't take anything personally. The third one is don't make assumptions. And the number 4 is always do your best. So the first one is, it says, speak with integrity. It says, say only what you mean. Avoid using words to speak against yourself or to gossip about others. Use the power of your word in direct and truth in love. And that's something that we can just strive for. Trust me, I work the best that I can to make sure that I am as impeccable with my word, that I am not doing anything that throws harm to anybody else. The second one is don't take anything personally. Now that one was a little difficult because I'm like, if somebody has a gun to my head, how can I not take that personal? And it was really explained to me this way. It says that person holding the gun has nothing to do with you. It is that person willing to hold a gun on another human being. It could be anybody. And it finally dawned on me to not take anything personal. It says nothing others do is because of you. Nothing. What others say or do is a project of your own reality, their own dream. When you are immune to the opinions and actions of others, you won't be the victim or needless suffering, right? We are trying to walk out being a victim in this life and walk with purpose. And this is one of the things, don't take anything personally. Number 3 is don't make assumptions. It says find the courage to ask questions and express what you really want. Communicate with others as clearly as you can to avoid misunderstandings, sadness, or drama. With just one agreement, you can completely transform your life. That is really important. Number 4, always do your best. It says your best is going to change from moment to moment. It will be different when healthy as opposed to sick. Under any circumstance, simply do your best. You will avoid self-judgment, self-abuse, and regret. But always just do your best at the moment that you have and with the tools that you have available to you. So that is kind of what I wanted to kind of bring about and have, discussions or, just a refresher course on how we're supposed to be walking in this world as a community. So,
Very
what do you
good.
think?
One of the four that you mentioned struck me because one time I was at a fundraising dinner party thing, and the current president was there, Joe Biden. And one of the things he talked about, people said, "You've been in Congress for so long, how do you get along? How do you deal with these people?" And he said, "I never assume I understand why someone is taking the stand they're taking until I have a chance to really talk with them, until talk to them and find out, factually what's really going on." He said, "It's too easy for us to say, oh, they're from there and that's why they do it." And he said, "I see a lot of people in positions of power that do that, and they miss the lesson they could learn in their own life about where they are." And I think the thing I don't talk about, we're talking about now, but right now we're seeing a lot of legislators that are totally opposite ends of the spectrum finally sitting down and talking and figuring out how are we going to get from here to there. And that's how he works. So we're beginning to see the way he told us he liked to govern take place in our own government. And what you see on that big macro stage, it's actually happening in a micro inside of each of us.
Oh, I agree. Absolutely.
And
So, yeah, that was, I don't know what else to talk about.
yes, anybody have a question? So, 21 in chat, 9 buttons up. Okay, yeah, go guys, go like us. I mean, this has been confusing enough. You guys have no idea. I start these things and I'm like, I've got it all arranged. And then, as you saw yesterday, it's not as arranged as I thought. And then it's gotten even worse. And it's not for any reason of anybody had any control over, but some other guests have had to cancel because of situations in their own lives. And so, I'm running around. Thankfully, I called Sheila last night and said, "Can you please come on? They just don't want to see my happy face for however long this takes." And other than that, the only thing I can Sheila, I can tell you the good news. For all the crap that
Okay.
happened yesterday, the last email I opened is they're building the first prototype egg this week. I'll see it by
Oh,
the end. Yay!
yay!
Sheila's so excited to get her egg. But yeah, they're
Yeah.
so they will know, and I will know if it's truly. I wouldn't think they'd have gotten this far if they thought it wasn't doable. So, and y'all will have lots of fun meetings about the eggs. You thought the garden was wild. Wait till you get to know the eggs.
Yeah, I'm excited about the eggs as well. This is a great community and probably a great time to talk about what do you do to raise your vibration throughout your day?
Me?
Hmm.
I knit. You know how you do yard work and you meditate? I knit. And once I get into doing certain patterns, and I have tons and tons of yarns from really specific projects that I knit over the years. And now I literally have a giant trunk full of the oddballs of yarn. And what I do is I just reach in the thing and pull out another one and just start knitting that, add it in, and it makes like this giant patchwork thing. And for all the weird yarns in there, there's baby fuzzy yarns, there's nice, sophisticated, created, wonderful stripe yarns, there's woolly scratchy yarns that I used to make bedroom slippers out of, but they keep your feet warm. And and it was a dollar a skein in the bin yarn, and when you put it all together, it's just like us. At the end of the day, your mind and your body and everything takes it in and makes it into a whole. The last one I made for not to sound highfalutin, but there's 3 adults that live in my house, and so once every 2 weeks, my daughter has hired 2 women who work for the housekeeping at her university, and they come over and they make some extra money running through here and just basically cleaning the floors and checking everything out and kind of every once in a while straighten out the refrigerator, which is always a fun task. But they get the house all straightened because we got three people and 2 cats and a dog here. So, but one of the maids, we didn't even know she was pregnant. And the other maid said, "Oh yeah, she's going to have a C-section tomorrow, so I'll be on my own." And we're looking at each other now. She's a pretty round, roly-poly lady, but man, to hide a pregnancy that far, I'm like, really?
You're like, whoa.
So anyway, the last blanket I'm knitted, they're going to pick it up Saturday. But I mean, and I just give them away because it keeps me calm and centered. I go out and walk. We have a beautiful greenway, a green area near us because I sound like I live by a golf course. But I have nothing to do with that. I don't belong to it. I don't like golf. If you've heard my garden stories, you know that I have a whole space that's called Go For It that's based on a childhood memory of hitting a hole in one and then telling them, I'm never playing again because I did what you're supposed to do, so I'm out. But anyway, I go walk along the green there, and it's absolutely gorgeous because it goes down into a creek bed. Now, I don't go down to the creek bed because my knees don't do creek beds, but it's just a wonderful place, and there's some beautiful trees there. And there's one weird tree. At some point, someone lopped all its limbs off. So now it's like a giant lollipop. It's this huge, thick trunk, and then it's just like a big round It's like, it's weird. So I call it the lollipop tree, and I talk to it when I go by. And I always have earbuds in, so when I'm talking to the trees and things, people think I'm on the phone talking to someone. But
yeah, there's tons of things that you can do to raise your vibration.
Mm-hmm.
Tons.
Yeah, do a gratitude list. That one is scientifically proved. If people do, if they I love it when scientists have to tell us what we already know, but they put the little plugs on and see what your brain vibrations are. Then they have people speak in terms of gratitude, or then they just engage them in just general conversation. And when it's gratitude, the vibrations in the brain, then their how fast things are running goes much more quickly and much through the smoother parts of the brain, not in the hectic parts of the brain.
And you don't have to have a big gratitude like people who like your big house, this, that, and the other. I mean, just think about it. If you have a warm bed to sleep in, be grateful. If you have a toothbrush, you have toilet paper. You know, there is something that you have that somebody else is lacking. So always be grateful for whatever it is in your life, and start small. If you really, really can't find anything to be grateful for in your life, start with socks. So yeah, so gratitude list is absolutely one of the proven things that you can do. Music. Listen to music. Listen to, don't listen to the devil music. The hard rock and roll. I don't know if that's gonna raise your vibration, but mine is piano music or enlightenment. Michael Bernard Beckwith has a really wonderful CD out that I listen to, and it really, I can put it in my car or wherever, and I can dance to it, and I love listening to that. So you can definitely raise it with music, being around children, being around dogs, being around your cat, things like that. It's like not a complicated it has to be in complicated or huge, big actions.
Or expensive.
It could be free. Most definitely. And be around people that are also high vibrating. Go by somebody who you enjoy being by. Have coffee with them or tea or whatever.
Y'all know how to find YouTube. You wouldn't be here if you didn't. And there's a lot of good meditations on YouTube, And if you hit one and the voice, I turned one on one night and it sounded great. And then the guy went into this real creepy slow talk, and I woke up and went,
Not
it. So you have the right to self-edit your life. Let me tell you.
When I go to sleep, I do a lot of meditation videos, voices, or hypnosis. Like if you wanted to, have highlighting or go to sleep or something like that, I just play a nice little high vibrating little hypnosis that I listen to and go to sleep with. And there's just so much we can do in our life that will bring us to a better place in high vibrating.
Yes. And if you're curious about something, go learn about it. Go Google it, go figure it out. And
And that's, I was at the bottom of my barrel, and I was feeling the worst I've ever felt, when I was like 30, 32 years old, and it was just that simple little tiny, somebody just offered me, like, here, go listen to this, and that's where it started.
Have you ever read Gail Sheehy's book called Passages?
I have
This
not.
is old. I mean, this is a 40-year-old book. But what happened when I was growing up, there was all these books on how you develop, and then you turned somewhere between 18 and 22. We're supposed to stop developing. We just got to I'm a child of the 50s. You got to a plane, and that's where you were. And there was nothing about what happens to people the rest of her life. So what happened is she was a journalist, and she started interviewing people, and she started seeing real common life patterns. And 30 to 32 is for women. That's where
that makes a lot of sense.
the and I can tell you, because when you said 30, 32, I said, oh, I remember that. Yeah. But and if you don't do things at certain times, then you'll do them later in your life when it's maybe not as appropriate. Like my second husband was a child of war. He lived in London during the war. He never had a chance to be a kid. So he didn't start being a kid till we started dating, and he was in his 50s. That's when he decided. And I mean, he would do some crazy, weird things for a guy his age, nothing that was illegal, but just, oh, let's go over and try this, I mean, and, I'd been through it. I'd lived a life that had included that thing. So, but by this time I'd read her book, and it just talks about how we all go through passages, and what you can do when you start to see yourself heading in a direction. Sort of, she talks about success stories. She also talks about people who they didn't make it. They just didn't do as well as they could have. But that might be and it's an old book, so she's talking about old things. There'll be nothing about computers. There'll be nothing about social media. There'll be nothing about any of that in it. But because I can remember reading it on the train going home to visit my parents when I was pregnant with my son, who's now 45. That's how old this book is. But it really is an interesting look at, because she followed people all the way up to older, and I've watched people go through it, and there are just times of your life when, I remember when I was in my 20s and I was bright and aggressive working in public broadcasting, and we were discussing some issue that was out at the time, and there was an older man there who was an engineer, and he was in his 50s, I guess, and I looked at him, and he was like, I don't really want to think about that. And I said, oh, you have such a closed mind. And he said, it's my mind, and I'll close it whenever I want. Well, and I've learned that there was value in what Joe said.
Yes, lots of value. Well, there are some books that I've also started my journey. One of my favorite books that really opened up my mind was reading the book Feelings Buried Alive Never Die. Have you ever heard of that book?
No.
It talks about how, even though we think we're doing fine and we dealt with the situation and all of that, but if we really didn't deal with the situation, all we did is bury that feeling, and it goes to a certain part of our bodies, and it affects each organ, and that's where a lot of disease comes from. And I thought and that was one of my first books that I had read about Feelings Buried Alive Never Die. And getting through it, and opening up and working through each and every situation, every pain, every resentment, everything, and get to the other side where we can be, don't take things personal. Because unless you deal with the old baggage in your life, really going forward with anything is it's like littered and polluted, unless we really deal with things that have happened to us in the past. Like if you had a horrible childhood, had a horrible marriage, you had a horrible family, you know what I mean? All of these things pile up and become more of a heavy burden for us, especially holding it in our bodies can bring about disease. and that was a wonderful, great start for my journey, is to start reading about that. And then there was, Miguel, this one right here, the Four Agreements, and Michael Bernard Beckwith was another one of my favorite. Carolyn Mace, I read one of her books where she talked about coming and being, um, like, what did she call it? Oh, the archetypes of people's personalities,
Right.
being an archetype and stuff like that. That was a wonderful book. And, nowadays, just getting into the arts and crafts of metaphysical world, like reading numerology, trying to muddle my way through uh, the astrology and natal charts. I really am. I really don't know what avenue I'm missing, but I just keep at it. Learning, about tarot, learning a lot about me and things like that. So these are the things that we can definitely do past that time. When if we're in a bad situation, pass the time with something good. It really will help.
Yeah, and it opens your mind, and it shows you either paths out, or what you need to work with. There's a massage technique called rolfing, and they go in and they find these. They actually can. The people who are trained in this physically find where your muscles are holding painful memories. And I had a
Yes.
friend who went through it, and she'd had a lot of stuff happen when she was younger. Some of it she forgot, and she remembered it while she was doing the rolfing. But she said she'd come out of there. He'd be massaging on her, and she'd be weeping and crying and letting go of all this stuff she never knew that she was carrying around. Then the next year, she was in her late 60s, I think, when she was doing this. And the next summer, she had a really beautiful, lovely garden, and she was out gardening, and she said, it's like my body was free. All the aches and pains I used to walk in when after gardening
Mm-hmm.
with, because she loved gardening, but just using her body, it's like, well, we're going to punish you now because you enjoyed yourself. And she said, I'm so free
Funny.
from all that. I don't have to deal with that anymore. Yes.
Muscle. You remember muscle testing? Remember
Yes.
when muscle testing came out?
Mm-hmm. I used,
Muscle testing for the food that you can eat and what you shouldn't eat.
right. I had an herbalist who she'd grab your hand right here with her hand, she'd put them in a way, and she'd scan your body.
Mm-hmm.
And she was better than any serology test I ever had at finding, and she was super good. Unfortunately, she was like 100 years old when she was doing that for me in my 50s, and so I know she's not with us. She's with us
Yeah.
maybe if she came back, but
I used to do the medical scanning of people if they wanted to know, where something was in their body, and I could put my hand on their head and all that, and do the muscle testing and go through the whole reading. Still can. It's just that COVID, nobody's touching nobody
we
anymore.
don't,
But
nobody. I'm going to give you something.
right, no, we're talking about. But and also palmistry. Oh my gosh, did I have a blast? And I still do palmistry. I will always. I'm like, let me see your hand. And just out of a stranger, if this person's like really unique, like, can I see your hand? And I read the palmistry and the things like that. I mean, I don't have. I don't know if you can see it, but I don't know if you can. I do not see. I do not have a lifeline.
You're the person who told me you didn't have a lifeline. Okay, now I remember somebody
I
telling me.
don't have a lifeline on my dominant hand. Now I have one on this one. They always say that my lifeline on my left hand is my past or whatever, but I do not have one on there. And so I went searching for. You can kind of see right there.
Yeah, I can see.
I went searching for the reason why I don't have a lifeline on my dominant hand, like everybody else does in this world.
Mm-hmm.
And I finally come across somebody, and I always it's like somebody, and hopefully she was truthful, but she said that I chosen to come down here, and I can choose to leave at any point in time. I did not have. I came down here to fulfill agreements that I had with my children and what they needed out of their lifetime to fulfill their life,
Mm-hmm.
and other agreements that I had with other people.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like she says, you didn't need to come back down. You just wanted to.
Oh, you're a volunteer.
And I was a volunteer.
Yeah, my oldest son's a volunteer.
I was a
Yeah.
volunteer. I didn't, And so but you see, here was the weirdest thing too, was that once I knew that I fulfilled my contracts with my children and the people who are around me, I was let go. And I was like on that moment of, am I going to stay or am I going to go? And I thought to myself, I'll just stay. Let me see what else I can, generate and go forth and be in this world. And as so far, I'm so glad that I have stayed. Of course, to see my grandchildren and things like that. But I'm learning so much, and I am so grateful to be on this earth right here, right now, at this moment, and the transformation, the new world, the learning. It's been remarkable, actually. So I think I'll stay for a while.
Yeah, I'm not going anywhere.
Yep.
Someone just posted that plankton is appearing in the Arctic now, that the water is so warm. It's like a good sign. And another question we got, and we can do it at the end. Someone's just beginning to study numerology. And when I teach tarot, the first class is numerology, the basics, your life path number and how to figure out the other numbers, because in numerology you use 1 through 9. And as you know, if you've watched a tarot deck, it's 1 through 10. So if you get a clear impression of what 1 through 9 is, then you just marry the meaning of the number 1 with the suit. So cups are emotions. So what's 1 with emotions? And that's a really fast way. So by the end of the first week, when they've gone home and played numerology on every person they know, they have this much of the deck left, and then all you have to learn is a fool's journey, and those 78 cards become much. I mean, then after that you put your own energy in and become involved with all the other stuff. So when we close out today, I'm going to go on the 1 through 7, and if you want to see 8, 9, you're going to have to watch the last 2 days. But I'll talk about what I believe is the archetypes of those numbers. The quick. I believe in keywords. I'm a very verbal person. So I'll give you my keywords that I would give you if I was teaching you that class. And
I'm a life path 7. So
what?
I enjoy 7.
I'm a 3. I'm a 3. I'm a talker.
I'm a 7.
That's a great life path. There's not a life path that's bad. There's some that could be a little more difficult than others.
Yeah.
But, and also it depends on the combination of numbers you came in with. I didn't get any of the money numbers. So, I have to figure that's why I'm so good with that.
Well, I met somebody whose life path was 9, and they have more endings than I've ever known in anybody's lifetime. I mean, an ending of a relationship, ending of parents, ending of a child, I mean, it was just incredible how many endings they had to walk through. I was like, whoa!
I have a friend who lives near you. Her life path is a 9. Her spirit is a 9. Her outer self is a 9. And how people view her is a 9. And I used to give her name to numerologists at psychic fairs just to watch them look and say, did you make this name up? But what it ultimately comes out to is she can't end anything, because she has no other number to progress to. So for her to say an end is an end is an end is difficult. She does it. She's learned. She's gotten old enough to learn how to do it. But everything always had a thing, so she could be drawn back into it. Unlike your person, if you have a clear 9, yeah, you're gonna have a place to end, but then you have other numbers to work with to move forward.
Yeah, it was like this person was buttoning up every situation she's ever had in her like many a lifetime. She was just buttoning every situation up, end. I was like, oh,
Pam B has a 9 life path. That's good. It's a good sturdy life path. Okay.
Yep.
So we're going to put the candles out. And remember, as I've told you, if you're lighting candles with me every day, you're supposed to blow them out, because if you don't, you won't have any candles by the 9th day. You'll have 1. Okay. Okay. This is the 1. And 1 is the beginning. And then for a person, it's a pioneer. It's someone who's solo. It's someone that doesn't need other people necessarily. They're always kind of the leader everybody's following. Number 2. Think about 2 things, and they're across from each other, and they're communicating with each other. And so that's what 2 is about. It's about communicating one-to-one. It's about doing things that are dualistic, black and white. If you got a 3, the 3 is a triangle. The triangle. It's the most powerful. It's the most powerful natural force. It's the most stable force, and energy flows in a triangle very easily. So that's how your energy flows in a triangle, and so we're great communicators. We also can get on that little triangle and just keep going round and round. Another problem we can have. But that's a 3 is the triangle, and think about it as a strong structure. 4 is the base. And if you think about a square, you move in a direction, then you hit a corner, then you have to change so you can keep going around the square. So it's kind of like you're given lots of chances. They're almost like speed bumps to rethink your life and to restructure things. But if you work a 4 really well, if you're in a 4 personal year, maybe I'll do something about personal years one day. But if you're in a 4 personal year, that's a great year to build your base. And if you build your base and pay attention and get that structure right, then you go into the year 5. 5 is freedom or chaos.
Mm-hmm.
If you built the structure okay, if you built that structure great, it's going to be a great year to move forward with freedom in a lot of direction. If you didn't build it together well, it becomes chaos. And we have a former president who a lot of the numbers on his charts are 5s, and so he chose chaos. So I want to think about 5. 5 is freedom or chaos. It can be either one. My daughter is very good at organizing things, but when she gets into chaos, nobody does it better. Okay, 6 is
That's my
hearth and
daughter.
home.
That's it.
And when you get to the number personal year 6 or to the number 6, you are a home person. Things that are close to your heart. People will come up and they'll trust you because they feel like you're a safe haven, a safe place to be. And so that's what the 6 is kind of about. And there's a negative side to each one of these, but I'm not going to go into that. I'm just talking about the good stuff, really. Except 5, you can't talk about freedom without chaos. But then, 7. 7 is a highly spiritual number in almost every faith. It is also the analytical number. It's the people who are very good at analyzing things and taking track and keeping things together. And when you're in a 7 year, you're going to be doing a lot of that. You're going to be looking back at the last 6 years that led up to that year, to the 7th year. And since we're almost there, I'll bring the other ones up. Okay, 8. 8, which is not lit fresh yet, but 8 is money and power. So if you've done the first 7 years in your personal life in your 9-year cycle, well, you can go into that 8 and it will be a wonderful, successful time. If you haven't, you're going to have problems. Okay, then we get to the 9, and 9 is the ending. And what people find, if you can figure out, the way you figure out what year you're in is you add the digits of your birthday and then the numerals that are in that year. So this is a 5 year. So you just add 5 to whatever your birthday numbers, and you simplify it down to 1.
6 plus 1 plus 3 plus 1 plus 9 plus 6 plus 8, and whatever's at the end of that, add them together.
Yeah, and you simplify it down until it's 1 digit. 9 is endings, and my favorite 9 life path story is the guy that I worked with and I knew for years, and he was a server at the wine bar that I worked at, and he was a very attractive young man, just really handsome, and had long hair and wore it up in a man bun, which was not my favorite feature about him, but it looked good on him. And he came up to me and he goes, "Nancy, I don't know what's going on." And I said, "Why?" And he'd always been footloose and fancy free, and he worked a bit for his dad. He worked as a server there. They were training him on how to work, because they actually, in order to be a winery in Texas, you have to actually be making wine. So they were barreling wine in the place I was at. They were teaching me how to do that and put it in bottles and do all that stuff. But he would just go from thing to thing. And I said, "What's happening?" And he said, "I've agreed to take the job to work with the vintner all the time." And I said, "Good. I'm glad, And he said, "And I'm going to work." They also own a vineyard. And he said, "I'm going to go work out at the vineyard too." And he said, and I'm going to start learning my dad's business. His dad ran rental properties. I'm going to start learning my dad's business too. I said, well, good. You're finally making adult choices. I didn't say it that way, but anyway. And then he said, and he turned around. I said, you cut your hair? And he said, yeah. And I never thought I'd cut my hair. And I said, why'd you cut your hair? And he said, well, it just got hot and it was a bad summer. So he said, I just cut it. And he said, but the biggest thing is, he said, I think I'm falling in love with somebody. Now that was big news because he was not. And I said, oh, cool. What, who is she? And he said, she's absolutely wonderful. He started talking about her. He said, but. And I said, okay, what's the but? He said, she has a little girl. And I always have never gotten involved with a woman who had children because it's not my thing. And so I sat down and I looked at him and I said, when's your birthday? His birthday was in 2 weeks. He was leaving his 9-year and going into a 1 year in 2 weeks. In 2 months, he had completely altered and reshaped his life, brought this person into his life that he wanted. And I said, great, you're going into a 1 year and you've wrapped everything up and you're ready to move forward into a 1 year. It's going to be a great year for you. The addendum to this story is his baby's due next month. They got married.
He not only took on the little girl, he's going to add to the family.
Benny, I will do one. Benny is a 4/14, so it's 5, 9. 9 and 5 is 14. You're in a 5-year, Benny. And next year you'll be in a 6-year. And numerologists, readers, everybody fights about this. And then I will let you all go. But some say it starts at the January 1 of the next year when your birthday's in. I have, in mapping my life out, I guarantee you guys, it's the day of your birth. That's the start of your personal year.
9 and stuff. I go on a 5-year, almost 6-year cycle. I'm a 5-year, 6-year cycle.
Okay.
And every 5 years, something changes drastically. And then when I hit my 6th year, it's all brand new. So cool. I found that really interesting.
Yeah.
But I see a lot of people who have a 10-year cycle as well. However, a 9-year cycle has always been a solid, but it's time to move on. Let's do something different.
And it's a way to gauge. And so when you feel out of sorts, or if you're with someone who gets out of sorts, look at what year they're in. You may be in a 3, I'm loving being with people, I'm loving communicating, and they may be in a 4-year where they're trying to build a base and they don't want to mess with a lot of new ideas. They want to deal with what they've got. I mean, and I read I used to read a lot of books on numerology, and I read a whole thing about understanding the numerology of your children, which was kind of interesting. So but that's not this topic today. Yes. Oh God, somebody here has what I have. I have a light. I'm like a lighthouse for people who are in trouble. I mean, they come up and they start talking to me in the grocery store. That's been the best thing about being locked up with COVID. I don't got to put up with that anymore.
Yeah, I think all empaths are like that. I have had, I could be in line with a grocery store, a clerk, and all of a sudden they're telling me about their wife or their husband's infidelity, and I'm sitting there going,
I get paid for this, please.
Stop here. But they just open up. And I always say when I'm doing personal readings, I say, I am an empath. I will wick emotions out of you.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we do. This is how it works. And so they get emotional, they have a hurt or they have a pain that they're working through. And it's like an empath in your presence will wick that out of you because we're healers. If there's nothing else you get out of an empath, we are ultimate healers.
Yeah,
and that's what we have agreed to do.
And, when people say, gee, it'd be really cool to be like that. Well, it is until the first psychic fair where you have someone sitting in front of you that's, is going to try to go home and commit suicide if you don't come up with the right words. And then they still may
have no control over that.
No, they still might. But they came to you looking for light. They didn't come to you to make their own bad decisions.
All you can do is offer them up.
Yep, somebody says I stand in the grocery line, they tell me their whole life stories.
Yep. Strangers literally will stop in mid-mall to say, hi, how are you doing? And just tell me if they're upset, if they're angry. in mid-mall. I'm like, I have no idea who these people are. I just look like somebody, like you said, like that
Yeah.
lighthouse, that beacon of light that flies will fly around to and go, hey, what do you got?
What you need? Ooh, I barfed on my bed. Well
Oh,
then, my son's cat came down. Apparently, think this has gone on altogether too long and just threw up on my bed. Okay,
well,
Annette.
I had a cat. I had a kitty a long time ago that had to do that, and he had thyroid problem.
Annette, you're in an 8 year. Somebody, they put up 2 numbers and I can tell them that much. Okay. Anyway, we'll do some, maybe someday you and I will get together and do something on numerology. Just a really quick.
That 10 lollymop, that 10 is actually going to be a 1.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yes. You're going to be a 1.
Yeah, it rolls back. You only have one, if you go in the 9-year cycle, and I can tell you, there's a really good numerologist on YouTube named Ann Perry. She's a Canadian. I think she lives on Prince Edward Island. She's been riding her horses recently a lot. It's kind of interesting. But I don't ride horses, but she's interesting. She has a lot of stuff in her library. You can go look it up. In case you get tired of waiting for Sheila and I to get our act together.
Now, yeah. Well, numerology is a part of my life. I walk around. I mean, back in the day, I used to, drive around and decode license plates. I don't do that anymore, but I will see, I will see numbers constantly throughout my day, throughout everything. And each number is very, very important to me, and I pay attention to every number that shows up. 444, 333, 555, 777.
And there's all kind of apps you can download that do the angel numbers. Because, there's no way I'm going to remember between 1 and 999,
No.
So, we are about to close the